Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media, and we're here with NBA season previews. The group is running through every NBA team, previewing the season, and today, myself and Anthony are here with the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers are a team that gives us a lot to discuss. We're looking at a team that has vastly changed the direction of their franchise. And as we look back to last year, they finished 33 and 49, which was 13th in the West. They tanked late in the year. That's part of the reason they lost some of those games, and that resulted in Damian Lillard being traded this offseason. The full package was Damian Lillard for DeAndre. Well, they made a couple of trades, picked up Holiday, flipped them, but the overall assets that they brought in were DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Tumari Kamara, 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. And those are in many, many years, and they will be with the Bucks. So we have Damian Lillard is now a Milwaukee Buck. What is your reaction to the Blazers offseason and the haul that they received for their franchise player?
I'll start with, I think getting a trade done was obviously necessary because Damian Lillard was going to leave eventually. So getting something for him, and I don't think, yeah, they weren't going to be able to put together, a contender that fast to keep him happy. So unfortunate to see, such a integral uh, piece, to your franchise, for a very storied player with the Blazers. But overall, I think I'm not the hugest DeAndre Ayton fan, but I think almost if anything, that's a better move for Ayton because I think a change of scenery was due. And I actually kind of like the idea of him on the Blazers. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of Brogdon either, but I think it's serviceable. Um, Player. You said 3 first round picks, right?
Yep.
And then those two. Yeah. So overall, those two. And then talking more about their draft for the offseason. Uh, I love Scoot Henderson. I think he's going to be a dog, so I'm super excited to see him play. And I think Chris Murray was a very good pick. I'm not sure. It's hard to not compare him to Keegan right away, even though they have similar games because Keegan obviously went for, was the better player, and how great Keegan looked last year. But Chris Murray does play in such a similar way. And so I can definitely see that being successful with the Blazers too.
Yeah, and Chris Murray may not be the player that Keegan Murray is, but I don't remember the exact pick that they used to select Chris, but it was early 20s,
23, yeah.
23. So it's like the 4th overall pick versus the 23rd overall pick. It's very different in terms of
Hmm.
price tag. So he doesn't even have to be Keegan Murray. He can be a dollar store version of Keegan Murray and be a highly productive role player. So I'm with you here. I love what the Blazers did this offseason. And I just think this is a better direction to take with your franchise. At some point, it's good to have the reflection and, understand, hey, we're not going to win a championship here. And you're digging yourself out of, that hole well, you're digging yourself out of a hole in the way, but you're also not continuing to dig. You're able to get assets for your star guy as much as it hurts seeing him go out the door. And like you mentioned, DeAndre Ayton, you don't have to be the biggest fan of DeAndre Ayton to love this move because you're getting him for 10 cents on the dollar. And now he's going to be in a very low pressure situation, a new and a completely new situation. And, maybe he takes strides in his career. If he doesn't take strides in his career, you still walked away with 3 first round picks and 2 pick swaps. And those Buck pick swaps will probably, those Buck teams in, I believe it's 2027 and 2029, those are
Hmm.
probably not going to be great teams. That's going to be post Giannis
Was it
era.
23? He signed 3 years, yeah, but it's still more than in the future.
Yeah, so I think this is going to work out well. And Robert Williams is a piece that I'm really intrigued with because I thought he was a good player with the Celtics. I'm interested to see how they incorporate Aiton and Williams together. But maybe you don't play Williams a ton of minutes because he's an injury prone guy, but he's proven to be a high impact player when he's on the floor. Maybe they flip him. I imagine Malcolm Brogdon's a guy that they're probably looking to flip. I don't see the reason to keep him long term. Um, but Robert Williams is a guy where you could do either. You could keep him long term, flip him now. So I think the Blazers are in a position where they have a lot of flexibility and a lot of young talent, and that is topped off by Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson is first round or first overall pick caliber, and they got him at number 2. So Scoot Henderson is a guy that I'm excited for, and I'm really excited to watch as the Blazers roll into this year.
And then also real quick, I'll say like the re-signing Jeremy Grant and Matisse Thybulle. I know in Philly, he might not be everybody's cup of tea because the offense isn't there at times, or well, that's one of the main problems. It wasn't super consistent. But I do actually like him as a player a lot. I love the defense he offers, the size, and then I think kind of with him too, a low pressure situation compared to coming from Philadelphia to here with not title expectations every year, much more development focused with younger guys. So I think he can also. I do like him. I like him better in this situation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rolls us into like the projected starters, and whether you start Thibault or not, and whether you start Williams or not, you can craft lineups however you want, and maybe those guys end up being role players. But those are two really good defenders. If you're playing Matisse and Robert Williams on the floor at the same time, that is gonna produce some pretty good defensive results. And the makeup of this team going into this year, aside like as far as just winning games this year goes, because you have a mix of very young talent and a mix of some like legit veteran talent. Um, so you've got Scoot Henderson, probably going to be the starting point guard. You've got Anthony Simons, probably going to be your starting two guard. Simons also had a great year last year. Um, Career high in points, career high in minutes, very efficient, and he played very well um, while Damian Lillard was off the court. So he's a guy to look forward to this year. And then you're looking at Shaden Sharp, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton to round out that starting five. And you've got three young guys who can all take strides and can all impress, all athletic. And then you've got Grant and Ayton at your 4 and 5, two veterans that um, could be serious impact players. So the makeup of this team is intriguing to me because it's not all young guys. You still have legit veteran talent.
I think, yeah, that is the funny thing too, though, is because Sharp is they do have the two very good veterans, and they also are just kind of young too with their players that are they did draft. They're not like veterans in the sense of that played 3 or 4 years of college ball, and or even maybe a fifth. Yeah, they're pretty young, younger guys too as well. So I think who's their coach right now?
I do not know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I don't think it's not Chauncey, right? I don't know. It's some.
Oh, it is Chauncey. It's Chauncey.
Okay. So I know I was going to say this will come down to the coach, but obviously he will be getting some help from someone like Grant. I don't know if Aiton's the type of locker room presence he is, but someone like Grant for sure can help with getting them all on the same page and getting this together. We had talked about the Pistons before this. I think not as many lineups you can put out. The Blazers can't put out as many lineups, but overall, I do like their starting five rolling out on opening day. I think that could be a competitive team, and obviously with the mix of age on this team, I think depending on how the seasons goes, because obviously if they're not going for a playoff spot this year, maybe foot off the gas a little bit. But I was just saying towards the end of the year, I think this is the type of team, depending on how the development goes, it could be a lot more competitive, come February, March. So
Yeah, and off the Chauncey note, Chauncey is a great head coach to have for a guy like Scoot Henderson. I mean, even as simple as like development and practices, a legit great NBA point guard. That's a guy that will probably be beneficial to Scoot Henderson as he enters the league. And Scoot Henderson, I also think, is a rookie that will make an impact. Um, Sometimes rookies come in and they're just not quite ready. I think Scoot Henderson is going to be the type of rookie that maybe doesn't make a run for rookie of the year because of guys like Wembanyama, and Chet is going to be in that discussion as well since he didn't play last year. So maybe he's not in the rookie of the year conversation, but in a more traditional rookie class, he would have been. If this were last year, maybe he's in that conversation for rookie of the year. So I think he's going to be a very productive guy from day one. And as you mentioned, like this combo of Scoot, Simons, and Sharp is probably only going to get better as the season goes on. And those aren't guys that you shut down, even if you're tanking. Like if you want to tank Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon,
Hmm.
those are your guys that you're more likely to shut down, your veteran type guys. But you can't really afford to shut down Scoot, Simons, and Sharp. So I think this is gonna end up being a quality team. And like you kind of alluded to, I think this team can win some games. Um, I'm not sure where I'm really ready to plant my flag with this team, but I think we have a competitive team on our hands for I think this was a good way to put it. The Jazz last year exceeded a lot of expectations after blowing things up. I think this Blazers team could do a similar year.
And that's fair because I do feel the same way. I can't remember exactly what I picked them at for the preview, which we'll talk about, or the predictions. But yeah, that's because when you name the three people, huge Scoop fan. So you got me in there. So I think Simons is really talented and skilled, not just serviceable. I think yeah, he's actually a skilled starting guard in this league. I know, and then I know people like him a lot more than I do. There's even people because I'm not in love with this game by any means. I just think he's really good. And then I thought Sharp played well last year at times, and he is also very young. And his whole thing was he needed more minutes and time to grow in the NBA. He wasn't going to be a pop off in his second year type of player due to his circumstances of how when he got drafted. Um, so like those three people I think are all good to build a franchise around. And then if you still can get a good play from Jeremy Grant, who's an old veteran, been on many teams. And then specifically with, like I said, I think Aiton's a great fit right now in this. I would say in this offense on this team right now, leaving Phoenix. So overall, I I see a lot of options for this team to be good, a lot of ways for this team to be good. And by good, I mean exceeding expectations, like you said.
Yeah, I'm with you. And on the note about Simons, he averaged 21.8 points last year. It's like you just don't luck into
Hmm.
averaging over 20 points in the NBA, especially last year at times he was the number one offensive player on the floor, at least the number one offensive guard. So it's not like he was the guy who was sneaking up on teams. It's
Hmm.
like, especially in the latter portion of the year, that was the guy you needed to stop on the Blazers, and he was still being productive, which is something that deserves a lot of respect. The one concern that I do have about this team that I think does limit their potential is I don't necessarily love the depth. When we're looking at guys that are coming off the bench, we've talked about all of them already, but Brogdon, Thibault, Murray, and Robert Williams are really the only guys that I trust coming off the bench. And you're not going to sustain a nine-man rotation all year. And maybe they move Brogdon for more assets at the deadline, and now all of a sudden you're down another competent role player. So that would be that's the biggest concern that I have with this Blazers team going into this year. And I think that for me is what caps their potential to win games this year, which ultimately isn't the biggest concern considering where they're at as a franchise.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't. Yeah, I would. I completely agree with that depth. I would say, to be honest, some of these guys I am not that familiar with as well on this roster, but it's tough because they are very top heavy, and it's hard to be top heavy when you don't have any stars. You're just top heavy because you got some young guys and like two veterans. So it's not like they have KD, Beal, and Booker, and that's why they don't have depth. So, but and then yeah, I thought a great way to put it, like you said, that might be, I won't say a benefit to them, but not a total bad thing for them, as in because they're not really trying to compete this year. So, if it caps your team, you can still get your great looks with all these young guys, and then not end up winning a whole lot of games.
Yep. And the last thing I'll add on that is Brogdon and Robert Williams are both two injury prone guys. So it's very, very quick that you could
Hmm.
be down some depth fast. But some season projection here. I was sitting, looking at the Western Conference, going, who is going to finish last? We talked a little bit in our last video with the Pistons, who's going to finish last in the East, and there's a lot of good teams, a lot of teams that can potentially exceed expectations in the bottom five of these conferences. Looking at teams like the Spurs, the Rockets, like who is going to finish last? So I think the Blazers could end up being that team that finishes last in the West, which sounds weird because we just spent a lot of time saying they could over exceed expectations. But I do think the depth is, something that could, bite them and force them to lose games. Injuries may be an issue. But I don't think this is going to be the worst team in the West and you have 12 wins. I think this is going to be you're the worst team in the West, but you're looking closer to 25. I just think the West is going to be, barring someone blowing it up and deciding to absolutely tank. I think it's going to be a conference that doesn't have, one singular team that has sub 20 wins.
I definitely agree with that. I was trying to find, see if I could pull it up real quick of where exactly I had them ranked, but I agree. I don't see any outright bad team in the West, like you were saying. It's just tough because I mean, I think I could be a little lower on Spurs than some people, so which might be affecting. Let's see if yeah, but I had them around the same spot. I'd say 13 to 15. I think it should be the Spurs. To me, I still have the Rockets, the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Blazers. So all in that 13 to 15 spot. I don't know where each one is specifically, um, but like you said, I think this team has the ingredients to be very competitive. But then again, I could just be looking too much into the future with those ingredients right now because those players are so young. So a more than likely result would just be another lottery pick, another lower finish, and they get another good draft pick and try to keep going forward with what they've been doing.
Yep. That's a good point. And, maybe also, maybe they get off to a really slow start where, you've got all these brand new pieces. How do we get them to work together? Players getting used to each other. This may be a situation where they start off slow as the year kicks off. And that could be what ultimately keeps them closer to your 15 and your 14 spot. But at the end of the year, you're going, wow, they closed off the year, closer to 500 in the last month of the season, not overall, but in the last month, maybe you go 500 or something like that. So I think you said it earlier. There's avenues for them to find success, but I'll add there are some hurdles. But overall, I like the future of this Blazers team, and I think they'll be a very fun team to watch just from a viewing perspective, considering who's on this roster. And that wraps up our Blazers preview. Make sure to like and subscribe, VendettaSportsMedia.com. Like and subscribe to YouTube, Vendetta Sports Media. Go read VendettaSportsMedia.com. Every time we record something, I make that mistake in the end. It's whatever. NBA season previews, they're on the YouTube as well. Thank you for tuning in to this one.